Hi, Daniel.
Hello, Christina.
Thank you for taking the time today to talk a bit about the audit that we performed for the Speaks team coaching framework. I think it's very useful as we get a chance to see not only the perspective from Speaks and from their own team, how this was valuable for them, but also to see from the auditor side, auditor team side, what is it that we've discovered? How is this being representative for the coaching ecosystem and so further? So thank you for taking the time.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It was a cool project, and I'm happy to make it more visible.
Mm, Let's see what we can cover then. So let's start with one thing because you have a huge experience of delivering team coaching. You have a huge experience in looking at the profession and not only from the pure team coaching aspect, but also from other connects industries like agile, organizational development, and so on. So I am willing to go in bit further and say, so if you put all of that experience to use, what does this actually mean doing an audit for a platform that they've been the pilot to look into the team coaching framework?
Mm, I mean, first and foremost, it was very interesting to even construct the audit. It's like a kind of challenge that I've not had that often, especially at that level of detail, because usually, I think that's true for most team coaches. Each team is a little bit different. Your
Mm,
approach varies left and right, and sometimes you use more this approach or this method, and the other time you use something else. And um, it lives on being very flexible and very designed to the individual case. However, if you want to offer a certain kind of team coaching at scale through a platform, you need to standardize some stuff. And that is a question, like, how do you even do that?
mm,
And then in this case, our job was to make sure that Speaks as the platform and then the provider of these team coaching services operates in accordance to the ICF team coaching core competencies and code of ethics and stuff like that. So I think it was very interesting to even look into how would you even quantify that in a
mm,
way. So you need to, so Speaks has the interesting challenge to come up with a somewhat standardized approach, and we have to figure out how to quantify if it's compliant to what we want to see in the ICF
mm,
field. And that is a challenge you don't have every day. So that was very interesting in itself.
mm. Let me just pick on what you just said, this thing of quantifying, because I have to admit one thing that I've noticed from the very beginning when I needed to set up this entire project was ICF talks about team coaching competencies. They're
Hmm.
linked to me as a team coach. They're linked to me
Yes,
as professional. How do I deliver? What do I do? How do I show up? While
yes,
the audit had to be focused on process wise, so focused on the framework. So go
yeah,
back from level of competency small, conceptualize it and extract it and look at, but what would
yeah.
that mean for a framework? And I think that's what I'm picking from you as the first result out of this project is that it forces us to look at not only how do we act as single
Hmm.
units, but how do you take this one and further up and
Yeah,
look at the level of a framework?
yeah, and even just like what Speaks showed us, like they showed us their framework, of course, otherwise we would it would not have been possible to audit it, right? Um, what they created is like a standardized approach that can be applied every time, more or less the same way. And they had to make sure that it's compliant with these core competencies that are written more like what needs to show up in the coaching or what qualities does the coach need to have. So that whole translation is, I think, not that easy, and I think they did a great job. Like just to also have this in the video, I think it's a relatively good example of a team coaching framework that I could also see like larger corporations that have a lot of team coaches that are present all the time to support people in times of change, which I think become more common.
Yeah.
So we will see more of that. So I think the Speaks framework is a really good example how you can have a standardized approach within which a lot of coaches operate for many different clients. And you still have the right mix of a standardized approach, and you can still deal with individual cases well. So
Mm,
I think that's
mm,
a very interesting tension field, a very interesting challenge to solve. And I think it's a good example for how that can be potentially done.
mm, mm. Now that you moved into this direction, I would be interested in asking you also. See, I'm not saying I would be curious. I can have multiple curiosities, but let's just talk about this project in the sense of what do we take out of it? Not
Mhm.
just at the level of curiosity of how would it look like, because we've actually finished the entire implementation right now. We know what's the result of the audit. We know what we can learn, what Speaks could learn and could take as recommendations. But I'm curious, what can we as a coaching professional learn from this one?
Mm, I think what we noticed in our discussion, and as you just said, it ties back to also the recommendations we put on the table that go way beyond the audit. So we focused more on the audit, but we had so many ideas that we could give them on top that they could look into or not look into. These discussions we had around this between different experts um, opened my eyes to a few things I never thought about in that way. And I think those can be taken back to the larger coaching community and advance the craft, advance the field in a way.
Mm,
Just to give one concrete example so that viewers of this video know what we're talking about. We had this discussion around the ICF core competency for team coaching that asks to involve a
mm,
co-coach once you have 15 people or more. And we ended up in this discussion. Wait a second, that's not the only
mm,
attribute of a coaching context that makes it more complex. There is actually a lot of other things that can raise the complexity that would also ask for more than one coach is being involved to handle it properly. Um, and that is going beyond what the core competencies say today and beyond what's in the trainings and beyond what I see at the conferences today.
mm,
So that in itself would already be at least a conference contribution or maybe a few pages in a book or something. So we ended up in very interesting territories.
mm, mm. It's one of them indeed, and the other one that I appreciated from the conversations in there was this part of, can there be a way to make it measurable so that the final
Yeah.
customer can see a result, a tangible change or something? And I think that was the part that I liked about the framework in itself of these constant loops that were allowing the client to look at what they're getting.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to highlight a few things in the Speaks framework, in the Speaks team coaching framework, what I what stood out the most to me was this multi-level contracting
Mm,
with the sponsorship, with the team itself, and so on.
mm,
I think that they implemented relatively well. And what I especially liked was also the different, I think they call it surveys, but basically it's
mhm,
checkpoints with the coach with the team. They fill in certain kinds of, on a scale of 1 to 10, how was this session? What did I like? What's bothering me or whatever. So the team does not only at the end of the coaching process compare like where did we start to where we are now, but there is a constant
mm,
process tracking or progress tracking. And that leads to the third part. The third part is that this kind of constant feedback that they implemented as part of the framework is also um, looked into by an independent party that's
mm,
not part of the coaching. And if any red flags should show up or if anything looks curious, an independent party gets involved to address these issues. Like, so there is an
mm,
independent quality control, which I find a very good idea. And I think that's something for a lot of people to copy. Like if you build a team coaching framework, build in this independent party that has no stakes, but can go in and basically be like the diplomat, like, and figure out what's going wrong and help individually address these cases, even though we're operating in a standardized framework. Very, very, very good, in my opinion.
Hmm. Um, can I ask to also to go into this part of if you look for yourself, and now we
Mhm.
looked at what does that mean for the profession, what does that mean for Speaks, but I'm curious, what does this mean for you as a professional?
What I found very interesting is putting the audit together in itself. And I can also see your background in there. Like some of the viewers of this might not know that you have a background in financial audit as an ex-KPMG consultant. And I could clearly see your background in how you helped us put together this audit framework because we had to quantify things. And some of the things in coaching are very fluffy sometimes, or at least they appear very fluffy and we kind of know what we're looking for,
Mm,
but you know, if you have to make it a yes, no question, how do you hold on to this? And
mm,
I think that was very interesting to see how something can become quantifiable. And I see myself mostly as a consultant, and coaching is more like a tool for me within a consulting framework, whole other conversation. But as a consultant, I'm always interested in somehow measuring my impact or quantifying the impact I'm having or helping the client
mm,
quantifying how much did the needle move because of this
mm,
change and which needle moved and so on. And especially with, we're rolling out a coaching approach. Like, okay, so how do you measure this? And that's something I'm taking away. I think that was very well done. How the sometimes very fluffy criteria that's not made to audit a coaching framework was turned into an audit rubric
mm.
that could be answered in a yes, no pass or no pass manner by several different auditors. That in itself was a learning field for me.
Brilliant. Well, let's just hope that we will be able to learn as an organization also something from this one and transform this one not just from a pilot, but through something that can roll out through multiple providers so that we as a profession can grow and can introduce
Hmm.
some sort of unmeasurable quality assessments and being able to say,
Yeah.
yay, how do we compare to those criteria? And if we need to change them, how would we change them and towards what? So thank you very much for jumping onto this project. Thank you very much also for sharing your thoughts right now. And I
Yeah,
look
you're
forward.
welcome.
Thank you. We look forward to what else emerges as a joint thing that we could talk about after.
Yeah, and I hope that ICF Global is taking this up. I think this has enough potential to become like an international thing. And maybe there can be like an official badge for platforms that go through this process. I think everyone's learning. We're raising the bar. We're raising the bar on quality and on standards.
Mm,
I think especially the clients benefit a lot. I think the companies that go through the audit can benefit a lot. Even we auditors are learning. I think this is a great endeavor, and I hope there will be more of this, and also at a different scale, and not only in
mm,
ICF Germany.
mm. Thank you for that. Well, I will definitely pass that along and I'll do my very best to keep on pushing for this kind of one of a kind, you can call them unicorn projects and now then roll them on to being something that it's a reliable source of information for everyone and looking at
Mhm.
it as a quantification also for our profession. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And let's see what else emerges.
Thank you.